Since the beginning of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine, the aggressor's army has lost over 900,000 military personnel. These are the figures provided by the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. Of these, approximately 250,000 were killed, according to the Ministry of Defense of the UK. These are the largest losses Russia has suffered since World War II. The highest number of casualties are among people from remote regions of Russia, particularly ethnic minorities. Far fewer casualties come from Moscow and St. Petersburg.
Putin and the Russian leadership highly likely place significantly less value on the lives of ethnic minority Russian citizens from impoverished regions, with Russia recruitment efforts consequently focused disproportionately on these areas. From the Ministry of Defense of UK post on X social network.
Russian army losses are perceived by the Kremlin as news from a distant country, experts explain. For Putin, war is far more important than human lives. However, the death of hundreds of thousands of Russian citizens awoke little sympathy among the Russian people as well. This is evidenced by a survey conducted by the Levada Center. In February 2025, the level of support of Russia's war against Ukraine rose to 80%, the same level as in March 2022 following the start of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine.
To clarify why this is happening, for example, to suppress protests in Novosibirsk, the Murmansk Oman Special Purpose Mobile Unit would be sent. And to suppress protests in a hypothetical city like Orel, the Vladivostok Oman would be flown in. This shows how far apart these regions are, which makes these losses seem like news about a war in some distant, unknown country in Africa, Latin America, or Asia. Therefore, such losses don't matter to them because they don't see them firsthand.
Russian authorities have exhausted nearly all reserves that could be sent to fight the war against Ukraine. Now they are conscripting not only prisoners but also defendants. By the way, there is a severe shortage of personnel in the police and penitentiary services as well. The lack of workforce has become a publicly acknowledged issue by the Russian government. One of the reasons for this is the mass immigration of men of conscription age after Putin declared partial mobilization, but the main reason is the need to constantly replenish the Russian army's losses. Therefore, Putin has turned to North Korean soldiers. Up to 12,000 North Korean soldiers have been sent to participate in combat operations in the Kursk region. Thousands have been added to the casualty lists.
Despite the involvement of North Koreans in this war, it's more of a political move. Their numbers do not have a significant strategic impact on the battlefield. What's worse is that Kim Jong-un is not only not reducing, but actually increasing the supply of ammunition and weapons to Putin's regime. Putin is clearly running low on ammunition, and the ability to compensate for this shortage with supplies from North Korea and, to a significant extent, Iran, is certainly an advantage for him.
South Korean intelligence has reported that from January to February 2025, North Korea sent another 3,000 soldiers to Russia. On March 21st, Secretary of the Security Council Sergei Shoigu made another visit to North Korea. Russian media reported that Shoigu delivered a message from Putin to Kim Jong-un. Details are unknown.
According to Shoigu, during the talks, the sides discussed the implementation of agreements reached during previous visits by Kim Jong-un to Russia and Vladimir Putin to North Korea. Special attention was given to security issues, the situation in Ukraine, and the start of dialogue between Moscow and Washington. From Radio Free Europe publication.
If Putin demands that military aid to Kyiv be stopped, he should start by halting the supply of weapons and troops from North Korea and Iran, stated the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Poland, Radoslav Sikorsky. But while demanding that Ukraine stop its mobilization, Putin continues to send new recruits to the front, and there is no intention of stopping the recruitment process. Previously, the Kremlin dictator announced plans to increase the size of Russian army to 1.5 million people. Reported by Alexander Zaslavets, Victoria Smirnova, UATV News. In Russia, enterprises of the military-industrial complex lack professional workers. The deficit happened because the Russian Federation started to significantly scale up arms production. According to the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine, the volume of arms production has increased 3 to 6 times.
This is a powerful mechanism for warfare. Russia still has the capacity to produce almost all major weaponry nomenclatures, although there is information that the arms industry of Russia lacks hundreds of thousands of professional workers. Ivan Havrilyuk. Lieutenant General, the first Deputy Minister of Defense of Ukraine, in an interview with the Ukrinform publication.
At the time, due to sanctions, components for equipment that Russia used to receive from Western countries have become unavailable, and due to significant losses on the front lines, the Russian army is using Soviet-period weapons.
Instead of modern tanks, mostly Soviet-designed vehicles are sent to the front. The same applies to artillery and multiple rocket launchers. But even old weapons are still weapons. Even T-62 or T-55 are also tanks. The aggressor's logic is simple: not to spend on something that can be refilled from old stockpiles at some point. The main thing is quantity. Ivan Havrilyuk, Lieutenant General, the first Deputy Minister of Defense of Ukraine, in an interview with the Ukrinform publication.
Russia is also faced with significant problems with the replenishment of personnel due to the unwillingness of Russians to fight. In this regard, the Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation plans to make it more difficult to release recruits from service. This is stated on the report of the Institute for the Study of War. Now, the monthly enrollment in the ranks of the Russian army is so low that it does not cover the monthly losses. In addition, analysts noted that at the end of 2024 and the beginning of 2025, the level of recruitment of Russian military was either equal to or lower than necessary to compensate for losses. Some regions of Russia are not facing mobilization quotas as more citizens to refuse to fight.
Regions compete with each other to see who will give the most payouts. There is an acute shortage of stormtroopers. While in the past there were hot storms of prisoners sent there by Prigozhin, now things are a bit different with the recruitment of prisoners. But that doesn't change the fact that new people are needed to go on these attacks.
To encourage more people to go to the war, the Russian Ministry of Defense intends to revise the medical criteria for military service and reclassify them as less significant, allowing more people to be declared fit for service.
The Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation proposed reclassifying syphilis, hypertension, central nervous system atrophy disorders, skin diseases, schizophrenia, psychotic disorders, affective disorders, and other health problems as more minor ailments that do not disqualify someone from service. From the Institute for the Study of War report.
Astra reports that those who do not want to go to the front are now placed in special camps in the Russian Federation. Refusers are handcuffed to beds inside the barracks. One such camp was reported to the publication by relatives of one of the victims. The tent camp was rented by people in military uniform on the base of 74th Separate Guards Motor Rifle Brigade of Kuzbas. Let us recall that in recent months, Russia has suffered huge losses in its war against Ukraine. According to the Ukrainian Armed Forces General Staff, the invaders' losses per day range from 1,300 to 2,200 servicemen. Reported by Alexandra Zaslavets, Victoria Smirnova, UATV News.